Welcome to our channel, brave viewers. Tonight we descend into the abyss of human fear itself, where shadows whisper and nightmares take form. Brace yourself for some spine-chilling tales that will keep you up at night. Let me take you back to a night that still sends shivers down my spine. It was in room 104, where the air was thick with an unexplainable dread. I remember the flickering lights, the cold breeze that seemed to come from nowhere, and the feeling that I was not alone. Every creak, every shadow seemed to whisper a sinister secret. This was no ordinary haunting. It was as if the room itself was alive, watching, waiting, and then the door slammed shut. The legend began subtly with whispers from the staff about strange noises emanating from the room. Disembodied whispers, the dragging of furniture, blood-curdling screams that seemed to claw their way out from the very walls. For years, these whispers were dismissed as overactive imaginations of a hotel trying to bury its unsettling past. But the whispers grew into screams, the stories too frequent, too vivid to ignore. One guest, a businessman on a trip, reported waking in the dead of night to the chilling sight of a spectral figure standing at the foot of his bed. Its eyes, two burning embers of hate, bore into his soul, paralyzing him with fear. He fled the room, leaving his belongings behind, his sanity hanging by a thread. Another, a young couple on their honeymoon, hoping to fill the room with love, were instead met with an overwhelming sense of dread, a cold that seeped into their bones. They claimed to have witnessed objects moving on their own, the air thick with the feeling of unseen eyes, watching their every move. Their romantic getaway became a desperate flight for their sanity. The most disturbing account belongs to a family, the last family brave or foolish enough to stay in the room. The parents reported their children waking in the night, screaming about a shadowy figure that beckoned them to play, its voice a chilling whisper that promised unimaginable horrors. In the morning, deep scratches, as if carved by unseen claws, marred the children's arms, a chilling testament to their night of terror. To this day, room 104 remains sealed off, its door bolted shut, a chilling monument to the horrors that unfolded within its walls. Our next descent into darkness takes us deep into the heart of Redwood National Park, where towering trees cast long, ominous shadows, and the silence is broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant cries of unseen creatures. For you see, the woods hold secrets, ancient and unforgiving, and sometimes those secrets take a more sinister form. Our story begins with a group of friends, eager to escape the confines of their everyday lives and reconnect with nature. They set off into the woods, their backpacks filled with supplies, their hearts filled with the thrill of adventure. But as the sun began its descent, casting long, eerie shadows through the dense canopy, the group's excitement slowly morphed into a creeping unease. The woods, once welcoming, now seemed to press in on them, the air thick with an unnatural stillness. They set up camp near a babbling brook, its gentle murmur a stark contrast to the oppressive silence of the surrounding woods. As darkness enveloped the forest, so too did a palpable sense of dread. One by one, the friends retreated to their tents, their laughter replaced by hushed whispers and the rustling of sleeping bags. One of the friends, a young man named Jake, found sleep elusive. He tossed and turned in his tent, his mind racing with unsettling thoughts. The sounds of the forest, once comforting, now seemed amplified. Each rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig sending shivers down his spine. Driven by a primal urge to escape the confines of his tent, Jake unzipped the flimsy door and stepped out into the night. The world was bathed in an eerie silver glow, the moon casting long, distorted shadows that danced and writhed like living things. Taking a deep breath of the cool night air, Jake tried to shake off the feeling of unease that had settled upon him. It was then that he saw it. At the edge of the firelight, a figure stood motionless, its form shifting and wavering in the flickering flames. At first, Jake dismissed it as a trick of the light, his mind playing tricks on him in the darkness. But as he stared at the figure, his heart pounding in his chest, he realized that it was no mere figment of his imagination. The figure was tall and slender, its limbs impossibly long and thin like those of a spider. Its head was shrouded in darkness, but Jake could sense its gaze fixed upon him, cold and calculating. Terror gripped him, rooting him to the spot. He wanted to scream, to warn his friends, but his voice caught in his throat, trapped by the sheer horror of the sight before him. As if sensing his fear, the figure began to move, gliding effortlessly towards him, its movements fluid and silent. Jake watched in terror as the figure drew closer, its form growing larger with each passing second. He could feel its icy presence closing in on him, the air growing colder, the forest falling deathly silent. Just when he thought the figure would reach him, it suddenly vanished, disappearing into the darkness as quickly and silently as it had appeared. Jake stood there for a moment, his heart racing, his breath catching in his throat. He could still feel the creature's presence lingering in the air around him, its cold, malevolent gaze burning into his soul. The next morning, Jake told his friends what he had seen, but they dismissed it as a nightmare, a figment of his overactive imagination. But Jake knew what he had seen. He had looked into the eyes of something ancient and evil, something that lurked in the shadows of the forest, waiting for its moment to strike. Our final tale takes us from the sprawling wilderness to the confines of a seemingly innocent child's bedroom. It is a story about an object that should spark joy, a child's plaything transformed into a conduit for something wicked, something hungry for fear. This story revolves around a vintage porcelain doll, its once rosy cheeks faded with time, its painted eyes holding a disturbing gleam. It was found in an antique shop, its porcelain skin cold to the touch, its presence oddly unsettling. But to a young girl named Sophie, the doll was not a source of fear, but a thing of beauty, a lost treasure waiting to be loved once more. Sophie named the doll Emily and showered it with affection, carrying it everywhere with her, whispering secrets into its cold, unyielding ear. At first, there was nothing unusual, just the sweet, innocent bond between a child and her beloved toy. But then, slowly, subtly, things began to shift, the atmosphere around the doll growing heavy with a palpable sense of dread. The first sign, easily dismissed as a child's imagination, was Sophie claiming that Emily spoke to her at night. She'd whisper to her mother about Emily's dreams, about her longing to return to the place she once belonged. Sophie's mother, though concerned, attributed it to an overactive imagination, a child's memories of an only child. But then came the nightmare, vivid and terrifying, that left Sophie waking up in a cold sweat, her screams echoing through the house. She'd cry to her parents about a dark figure, its eyes burning with malevolent intent, that haunted her dreams, its voice a chilling whisper that promised pain and suffering. The nightmares grew more frequent, more intense, Sophie's once bright and cheerful demeanor fading into a pale reflection of its former self. She became withdrawn, her eyes holding a haunted look, her laughter replaced by an unsettling silence. Then came the incidents, unexplainable events that shook the family to its core. Objects began to move on their own, seemingly guided by an unseen hand. Doors slammed shut, their locks rattling as if shaken by an unseen force. Whispers seemed to emanate from the shadows, chilling whispers that sent shivers down their spines. One night, Sophie's parents were awakened by her blood-curdling screams. Rushing to her room, they found her cowering in the corner, her eyes wide with terror, her finger pointing at the rocking chair in the corner. The rocking chair, where Emily was always perched, was rocking back and forth, its motion slow and deliberate, as if occupied by an unseen presence. The final straw came when Sophie's mother discovered a message scrawled on the bathroom wall, written in a child's handwriting, but with a chilling maturity that belied its innocent appearance. "Let her go," it read, the words seeming to drip with malice and threat. Terrified and desperate, Sophie's parents sought help from a priest, a man of God known for his ability to combat the forces of darkness. The priest, upon entering Sophie's room, felt an immediate chill, a palpable sense of evil that sent shivers down his spine. He approached Emily, the doll sitting innocently on the bed, its porcelain face frozen in a disturbing silence. As he reached for the doll, it suddenly sprang to life, its head snapping towards him, its eyes blazing with an unholy fire. A guttural growl, inhuman and filled with rage, erupted from the doll, its tiny porcelain mouth contorting into a grotesque snarl. The priest recoiled in horror, the sheer malevolence emanating from the doll sending a surge of fear through his body. After a harrowing night of prayers and rituals, the priest managed to exorcise the evil entity that had possessed Emily, banishing it back to the depths from whence it came. And so we reached the end of our journey into the heart of darkness. If you enjoyed these terrifying tales, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling stories. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. Remember, the shadows grow longer after a story like this.